Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Masterclass on Beyond RevPAR. Now for the longest time, I think from the perspective of revenue management, we've looked at RevPAR as the measurement metric, right? The fixation of occupancy, average rate, and the calculations thereafter. But today we're hoping to broaden your horizons a little, to step away from that thinking, to perhaps figure out what is missing. What else can we be looking at beyond GoPAR, right? We also want to direct your attention, your awareness to the customer lifetime value, right? And looking at ways that we can optimize those revenue opportunities, right, beyond rooms. Now, so begs the question, what is missing? And I think before we even go into that, maybe just to call out the elephant in the room, I think we all have been responsible for working in our silos, sales and revenue and marketing and operations, right? They all work perfectly, right? No issue about that, but they're not working together, right? So I'm just now going to have my partners in crime walk us through their perspectives as well.
Yeah, so what's missing? I think the hospitality industry has become too transactional. It's like it's about capturing the reservations, and I tend to joke about that the revenue manager has never ever seen a customer or a guest. And it's a little bit true in that also. But the purpose of a business is to get a customer. So the customer is the most important person in a hotel, or the guest. And we have to remember that. It's all about the guest, nothing else. Not about the transactions, not about anything else. And Brandon, next. Thank you. So we talk about profit and profit management and all these kind of things, but profit is only a test that it works, that the customer or the guest is prepared to pay something for staying in your hotel. So focus on the customer. That's the most important part.
So you guys have heard a little bit this over the last 2 days about the travel story and the customer journey. We may call it different things, but essentially it's what does the guest actually go through? So we know we start with that dreaming stage, and then they go into planning, booking, experiencing, and sharing. What we want to do today is we actually want to show you guys how this connects with understanding what the value of your guest is. So how do we unlock the value of our guest?
So begs the question that Heather has just asked, in your respective hotels, departments, and the brands and chains that you represent, what is your understanding of total guest value, right? And how do we now begin to, to maybe align our thinking, shift our paradigm to now understand what that means?
So we are a little bit short of time today, so we'll give you some answers directly. It's about to understand the guest, really the guest needs, and finding the right guest. And it's also about personalization. We have heard that throughout yesterday and today. It's about value-based pricing, and it's about capturing or leverage opportunities, and it's about building a long-term relationship where customer lifetime value is very important.
The often used acronym, or cliche, people, process, and technology, right? We know it well, but really what we want to be able to have you refocus your thoughts is when we are designating a leader, right, within the commercial team. Hopefully, we identify a leader of champions, and we bring into the team committed individuals who will champion your cause, right, of realigning that whole revenue management strategy to a guest-centric one, right? But why is that concern for a leader of champions? Because they will silence the voices of dissent if any of that is forthcoming from the department, from the other departments from around the hotel, right? And then we go on to designing the guest journey, as Heather has just outlined for us. Various components that we will highlight in the course of our presentation. And importantly, deploy the right technology. The software, the tools that we have been acquainted with in the last day or two, those are opportunities, right? Platforms that we can engage to enhance that whole strategic move away from RevPAR to a guest-centric strategy.
And if I can just add, make sure you stay around for the session after this, where we'll go into technology and talking about how technology helps support.
Yeah, so now we are going to talk about the new thing about this. And it's the guest journey from a hotel perspective. So the question here is, what does the hotel need to do in every single stage of the guest journey? And the first one is attract. You have to become super attractive to the potential guest. And we will go into every single stage here and explain in more detail. The next one is capture. You need to capture. That's when the guest books. But you have to have a capture strategy. Then the third one is prepare. And a lot of hoteliers, they don't care about that stage at all. They got the reservation, and then one day the guest shows up at the front desk for checking in. In between, nothing happens, unless you have plus grade, of course. Yeah. And then you have the deliver stage. That's when you are going to deliver on the promises you have given to the guest when they booked and when they were upsold and all these kind of things. And the fifth step is the review step. Then you start to think, how can you improve the guest experience? How can you improve the profitability and so on? And this is nothing new, basically, but it's sort of revolutionary in terms of how we should work in the hotel industry. You don't see any silos at all. You need to be the expert of attracting, or the expert of capturing, or the expert of preparing. You should not be the expert of revenue management or marketing or sales. You should be the expert in the guest journey. That's the big difference.
And so before we begin moving into the guest journey, we want to think about what do we need to do to preparing for the guest journey. So it's about understanding and having knowledge of our guests. If you don't mind. There we go. So it's understanding, why are people actually traveling to your destination? And that's more than the traditional business or leisure. That tends to be what we ask, right? We're asking you to think a little bit more about that. It's not just about business or leisure, because as we all know, we've heard the term bleisure, right? So those lines are becoming blurred. So we need to dig a little bit deeper to actually understand, why are people coming to your hotel and coming to your destination? And once we know why they're coming to the destination, why do they want to stay in your hotel? What makes your hotel better than anyone else? And maybe the best choice for the people who are coming to your destination to stay at. So you guys have heard a lot over the different sessions yesterday and today that help build on this, and we want to bring it back for you and have you start thinking about the why. Why are people coming to your destination, and why should they choose you?
Yeah, so now we are going to go into each step of the guest journey in detail.
So for starters, we say, I mean, this, sounds like the most obvious thing. Get up, get dressed, put on your best, right? So when we're actually designating the commercial roles, responsibilities, and putting the team together, right? That is, of course, a consideration for what make up the marketing team and who you will have as your commercial director, right? And some of the questions the initiatives that revolve around identifying your targeted guests, right? Yeah. Now, understanding why they choose to be in your destination and the reasons why they are staying with you in your hotel, right? Now, importantly, I think this sounds like the most obvious thing, crafting your brand story, right? Way from the beginning, right? At the very first instant, when the guest makes contact with your brand, gets onto your website, or even searches for information about your hotel, right? And of course, needless to say, content creators in the room, or those of you who drive content creation, right, impactful, right? I mean, it's more than just putting a pretty picture out there, content that states the obvious, right? It's building in, I think, a level of emotion, of engagement, of drawing the guests into your story, right? Even as they are planning their own travel story. Here we go. So we talk about identifying or re-identifying your target guest mix, right? So there's a level of segmentation, reviewing your current guest mix and your future or desired guest mix, right? What would make up the ideal segments that you're looking at, right? And some of the metrics to measure the success of that, qualifying the leads, traffic to your website, outcomes of your investment in search engine marketing, your efforts at search engine optimization, and where does that get you, right? And importantly is to be able to go beyond engagement to enable that direct booking process, right? And hopefully along the way, right, your brand equity, your brand attributes start to resonate with the potential guest that's looking at your hotel, that's coming to stay with you.
Yeah, so can I add something here before we continue? And that is that the ideal guest is not what we normally talk about. It's a mix of a business travel and leisure and a little bit of everything. It's not to fill all the rooms. It's not about heads in beds. It's really to define the ideal guest. And one example is Singapore. So you have about 70,000+ rooms in Singapore, and the average occupancy rate is about 75%. So every single day there are demand for 50,000 rooms in Singapore, and you have a 100-room hotel. Could you find the most appropriate guests for your hotel? I think yes. But in the hotel industry, we are taking the easy way out. So we say, oh, we are open for everyone, and we can welcome anyone. Anyone that wants to buy our price, it's fine. I think you should be very, very hard on who do you actually want in your hotel, especially if you're on the upper, more luxury type of hotels. Then you can be much more selective. But you have to dare to do that as well.
All right, so when we move into the next phase, we want to ask ourselves, who drives that online success? So this is going to be led by your e-commerce or your digital managers, as well as your revenue managers. Sound good? So some of the areas that we want to focus on are delivering clear, reliable information and building trust, because as we know, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. We want to ensure that we're optimizing the direct booking journey, as well as maximizing value across all of our distribution touch points and online touch points. So our goal with looking at online and encouraging direct bookings is to capture the attention and spark desire in your ideal guest segments. Some of the metrics that we can look at to determine whether or not we're actually achieving our goal are things like the quality of leads, what does our web traffic look like, and what does conversion look like in each of the different areas.
Yeah, and then we continue with the prepare phase, and we call that prepare. It doesn't necessarily mean only upselling and cross-selling. It means also to ensure that we can deliver the best possible guest experience to the guest once they arrive to the hotel. And in the hotel business, we also assume a lot of things, that everyone knows how everything works in the whole world. And it's like if you're not familiar with Singapore, you don't know that you need to bring your adapter to charge your phone. So maybe in a pre-arrival email you can give some hints and some good advice also. It's not only about upselling, even if that is an important part as well. So the commercial roles here is like the guest relationships manager can be part of that very early in the guest journey as well, but also marketing, putting those offerings together. And then the key activities is, of course, to have the pre-arrival information, but also to upsell and try to improve the revenue along the way. So, can you grow revenue by 10%? Plus grade, you know the answer. Easily. Perfect. So here the intention here is to engage the guest and prepare for the experience, and to make sure that they have been offered everything that you actually can deliver to them, and make the experience a superior experience. So success metrics, yeah, you can work with communication engagements, upsell values, and a bunch of other metrics as well.
Great. You can deliver, yeah.
So we're coming down to that part of the guest arrival journey, right? So often when the guest arrives, well, there is a flurry of activities at the front desk, and I hope they haven't messed up your reservation. I think what absolutely, is a pet peeve for me is for someone to tell me, well, I'm sorry, sir, we don't have your reservation. Ooh, wow, right? I've traveled all the way, probably exhausted after the hours of flying and the hassle of getting through airports and immigration and what have you, to have that. So am I being told that I don't have a room for the night, or what, right? So we have to ensure that operationally, right, everyone is aligned. And I'm looking for that occasion, right, when even as a first-time guest to the hotel, someone would say to me, "Welcome, Mr. Chan. We have been expecting you." Oh, wow. What a tone. What an emotion it evokes, right? Or if I'm a return guest, that they recognize that and welcome back, Mr. Chan. So nice to see you again. I don't have too many of those experiences, but I'm hoping that after today's masterclass, even as we convey, these thought processes, these ideas, these initiatives with our colleagues, with our team members, we now begin to evolve our thinking from the traditional RevPAR focus to a guest-centric one, right? So some activities, I don't have to, I think, preach to the converted. I think for those of us who have been exposed or been in operations, we know what that means. But really is to not just curate that whole arrival experience, right? With the examples I've just given you, but to be able to craft a level of service that's personalized to their needs, right? I think we all really resent the feeling that it's a cookie cutter experience, like same old. We are but a room number, reservation confirmation code. Yeah, we want to go beyond that, right? Yeah. And importantly, that whilst the hotel has me, right, in the hotel, they'll look at opportunities to maximize the revenue potential out of me, right? make me a happy camper, and I'm happily partying, with dollars, spending more. And I think there is an often used cliche: don't leave money on the table, right? And I kind of want us to realign our thinking about that, right? When that money potentially could drive and increase your revenue streams. And then, of course, we go on to ensuring that that whole guest experience is optimized, enhanced, to a point where the reviews are going to be very impactful, right? These days, I think we sort of live by the reviews, whether that's on TripAdvisor, whether the guests are posting their experiences on social media, right? We want to ensure that's all going to be positive, right? Some matrix for measurement, right? Guest satisfaction, but it's actually the satisfaction matrix and leading on to the stay engagement, right? What communication, what touch points happen whilst the guest is with you in a hotel, and importantly, to be able to grant some of the autonomy, some of the empowerment to the staff to make decisions that are going to create these moments of truth, right? These are wow moments for the guests.
So the last item of our guest journey is understanding the review process. So this is where it's our turn to learn. It's our turn to understand, what is it that we're actually learning from the guest? What are we learning from our employees so that we can improve for the next time? So it's about, when we look at the commercial leaders and the roles that we play, we're looking for marketing and for reputation managers to be responsible for looking at this part of the guest journey, as well as if you have a CRM, leveraging that CRM, as well as your loyalty program. So some of those key areas are to ensure that we have a smooth departure experience, because that's the last touch point the guest has at your hotel. If it's a poor experience, that's the first thing on the top of their mind, right? When they're leaving their hotel, they think about how terrible it was. They don't remember what happened 5 days ago when they checked in. The second item is encouraging systematic employee feedback. So it's just as important. We reach out to our guests to find out what our guests thought about their stay and what they thought about their whole experience. But what about the employees? Your employees are the people who they're close to the guests, they have their ears closest to the ground, and they can actually provide some incredible insights to make things more efficient. You can tell I'm Gen X, I like the efficiency aspect of things. But you want to be able to carry that forward. So our goal in this review process is to ensure that we're capturing actionable insights, not just collecting insights. We want to be able to take these and create action from them to make things better and constantly improve. So we're going to do this through managing online reputation and nurturing our guest loyalty. So some of the metrics that we're going to take a look at are guest satisfaction, our loyalty and retention, and our engagement, both customer as well as employee engagement. So the key takeaways for us, you can go ahead and just put them all up here. Perfect. So our key takeaways for each of these items, if we think about the attract phase of the guest journey, we want you to find and solve your ideal guest needs. In the capture part of the journey, make it easier to book. Wherever it is that they book, make it as easy as possible. In the prepare stage, we want you to ensure that you have pre-arrival for active engagement and value creation. When you deliver, empower your teams to drive a moment of truth excellence. And then lastly, through the review stage, simplify feedback in order to improve the guest-centric management.
Yeah, so that was the fun part. Now we are going to talk about the financial part also of the guest journey. So the first part is to think about long-term sustainable financial results or profitability. So the first thinking is that, throughout this journey, guest journey, there are no other revenue sources outside the guest journey. All the revenues are in that process. So you have to capture the revenue. I will show you what it could look like just in a few slides. So all revenues are in there. So you have to focus on the guest journey. It's not about focusing on revenue management or marketing or sales. It's like guest journey and all revenue in the same journey. So the capture is the critical start. The first step is only cost, being attractive. There is no revenue in being attractive. The revenue starts when you capture. And then during the prepare stage, you have probably much more opportunities than you could ever think about. And there are some good tools that you can use to capture more revenue in the prepare stage. And then the deliver is also a new possibility to sell more things to the guest while they are on property. And most hotels try to sell something to the guest on property, but it's very passive sales. There is a room service menu in the room. There is a mini bar. There is it's only okay. The guest can maybe buy something, but there is rarely a proactive sales and proactive recommendations and helping the guest to book a table in the hotel restaurant and so on. And then on the cost side, so the guest journey generates all costs in a hotel. There are no other costs in a hotel. Maybe that sounds revolutionary. So what about the building or the construction or the room or renovations or all these kind of things? That's part of the guest journey. Why would you ever renovate your hotel if it doesn't benefit the guest? No, you wouldn't. What about accounting? That's a cost also. Yeah, that's the review phase. That's when you sum up all the revenue and costs and experiences about the guest journey and the guests and the employees and so on. So all costs are in there, in different categories, of course. So this is a new way of looking at the P&L, very revolutionary, I would say. It's a step away from the uniform system of accounts, totally. And then if we look at an example of what is if we look at the attract phase, revenue, nothing, no revenue, cost, maybe 5%, I have no idea. This needs to be developed further. So you have the profit, you're starting off with a negative loss, basically. You have to invest in order to get something. And then the capture, that represents the highest part of the revenue. And you have a cost. This is probably the customer acquisition cost, commissions to OTAs and web booking engine on your website and so on. So you have a profit in that step. Next, prepare. I don't know, plus grade, you know. Could that be 10% of the revenue? Maybe. You have some cost. That step should be profitable as well. Then you have the deliver. The more you sell on site, the better. But most of the costs will be during the deliver phase. So the deliver step is running at a loss. And then you have the review, no revenue, a little bit of cost, and hopefully you end up at a GOP of somewhere around 30%. And it's a new way of looking at the P&L. And if you go back to that slide again. So the question here is, where can I increase the revenue, in which step? And then I'll bring in the experts, the revenue managers, the marketing, the sales, and work on every single step. Question is, how do we improve revenue in these steps? And then you talk about the costs. How can we minimize or optimize the costs in every single step as well? And hopefully that will result in a higher GOP percentage overall. This is probably much, much easier to understand for everyone working in a hotel. It's like if you give them, here is the P&L according to the uniform system of accounts, who would ever understand anything of that? Not many. The GM, probably, the CFO, but that's it.
So let's take a look at a few of our takeaways. Our first one is to center your entire operation on the complete guest journey. Rather than focusing on just one section of it or one siloed piece of it, you want to be focused on that entire guest journey, understanding your ideal guest needs, mapping the entire experience, thinking about the pre-arrival all the way through to after the guest has left your hotel. And essentially, you'll design everything that you do around enhancing this journey for the guest. Because without the guest, you wouldn't have money to manage, right? We wouldn't have revenue to manage. So we also want you to unify your commercial and operational teams for a seamless delivery. So when we talk about demolishing silos, that's a pretty strong D word up there. So demolishing those silos, we're talking about demolishing the internal silos and working together. That doesn't mean that you can't have focus on your areas of the business, but we should all be focused on the guest and ensuring that that entire guest experience is seamless. We want to make sure that there's a true collaboration, and by aligning teams with a shared guest-centric commercial management objective and holistic view of the guest value, that's going to help move us forward. And that takes us beyond just looking at RevPAR. So I think this is our last one. So focus on the guest lifetime value for a sustainable profitability. So you're going to shift from prioritizing the short-term room transactions. So it's not just about the individual rooms. We're going to start looking at a more strategic value behind our clients and behind our guests. And invest in creating exceptional experiences that build on guest loyalty while maximizing the long-term profitable relationships that you have with your actual guests staying at the hotel. All right, Brandon, take us home.
Now, what's coming after today's masterclass is a white paper that we're putting together in far greater detail than what you have been listening to, right? On reiterating some of that people, process, technology framework, right? And helping you with some of the actionable insights, steps to get you started, and then, redefining how you measure success, because that also evolving your thinking, your mindset now to a profit, right? Focus mentality, and then an implementation plan that you can use, to kickstart the evolution that needs to happen in your department, in your hotel, within your chain. So that will be it. Now, we think it's going to be interesting. I mean, rather than this one-sided communication, it'd be interesting to hear some of your stories in regard to RevPAR and what other areas of revenue opportunities and potential you have had you have been able to work on. Anyone want to share your perspective?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to hear from me again. Okay, I love the idea of like telling the story this way, because it does get everybody in a hotel thinking, I do have an impact on guest satisfaction. I have an impact on revenue and profit because of this. It's just a different way of thinking it, and I think it could build a great team mentality within a business, a hotel as a business. But so that's where I'm going with it. Like I think it's pretty cool. The other side of it is empowerment. So I'll tell a story. Ready? So I was in Dubai. When I travel, I never carry cash, and people just laugh at me. I travel everywhere around the world. But I was in a taxi, got to this hotel. It was a one and only. I'm going to name it because it's a great hotel. And I got to the hotel. My Apple Pay didn't work. And I was sitting there, just in time for a meeting. But I'm like, darn it. Like, what am I going to do? I got a tap at the window, and it was one of the folks at the front, at the door. in the hotel. And he said, "What's the matter, sir?" I'm like, I said, "I don't know. My phone's not working. I have no cash. He wants X dirham. I don't know what to do." He's like, he said, "No problem. I got it." And he just paid the taxi driver with his own cash. And I said, "I'll come back later and pay you." And he said, "Don't worry about it." I said, no, I'll come back later. But it was that, the empowerment is critical to this whole thing, and the team has to believe and know that they are empowered up to a point. Like if the taxi was $1 million, then you're not going to pay for that. But it was so cool. Like that to me was the right thing to do at that time, and you just wish that happened in more hotels than it happened that I've experienced it in. So there. Okay. Goodbye.
And that was a great example from a luxury property, but it doesn't have to only happen at luxury properties. That I've traveled the world as well and stayed at hotels that are top of the line, and also hotels that we might look at and say they're the boring hotels, right? I've stayed at all different kinds, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what brand, it doesn't matter what level of service. Everyone can do this.
Another story from the audience? An experience with RevPAR and beyond, or have you begun to look at the other areas of revenue potential? What about you? Any story you want to tell or questions you wanted to ask? No, not really?
No. Is anyone excited about
Yes.
bringing the guest journey back and the
what about
idea
here?
of this back?
What has been your experience? Sort of, we are trying to break out of the silos, right? Sales and revenue, that perennial love-hate relationship. Let's not deny it, because when I was director of sales and marketing or head of marketing, for several of the hotel brands, that's a perennial battle, right? Yeah. I see the ladies nodding their heads. You want to share a story from your department? Questions?
So a question, is this the first time you launched this, or have you trial ballooned it out to different hotels and companies?
No,
that you
this
have?
is the first time we are launching this. So we'd really like some feedback as well. And as I said in the beginning, it's not rocket science. It's same, but a little bit different. And it's like you said, it's more probably easier to understand for everyone working in a hotel, and it will be easier to align every team member towards this goal. And if you work in a hotel, you probably like to work with guests, and that's probably one reason that you work in a hotel. So and then tie the profitability thinking on top of this as well, so you understand that a little bit easier as well. So.
Yeah, I think as we all embrace this brave new world of AI and how that's going to impact every aspect of our life, professional and personal, I think it also requires a shift, right? Evolution in our thinking. What about you? Your experience? Anything you want to chime in? You want to add a story you want to tell?
So don't try to connect this to my company. I don't know whether my boss is here. Yeah, so I work in operations. I'm not a rooms revenue. I do food and beverage revenue. So I've been doing operations for 20 over years. Then I went to commercial and corporate office. It's a different world, right? Every P&L is the same thing. Why is it like this? Why is it like that? A lot of numbers. So we have asset management coming in, questioning over the same question over and over again. If you observe the behavior of people after the P&L, when they see customer, they hate the customers. They're talking about numbers. So sometimes we go back to the essence of hospitality, right? Why are we doing this? It's because of the guests. But the metrics, there's nothing. It's always the same as you mentioned. The P&L is the labor cost, the food cost, the beverage cost, your top line, your bottom line. Improve your top line, so your bottom line will be higher. Over and over and over again. But the customer is not happy is because the carpet smells funny. Just simple things like that, from the beginning to the end. So even when they leave, how do you attract the same customers to come back? but it's more about, oh, this data, that data, and all that kind of stuff. So that matrix is how you show the table, the revenue and the costs. I think it helps a lot. But my issue is the paradigm shift. Nobody want to change. It's a legacy issue. Oh, you are saying P&L, we should do this? No, it's not going to work. Especially for, those generational where they are a bit older, they are more familiar with it. So I think the enticement of this will work, and maybe to show like, you see, more customers are happy, you see your revenue is increasing, then it will only, you have to start the ball rolling, I feel.
Yeah, you have to start with one step, right? We have to just make one change and move towards a focus like this, and reminding ourselves that it is about the guest, right? That's
Yeah, and
great.
I also think that maybe we have failed a little bit in the industry to educate the owners or the asset managers. We need to have simple models to show them, and we also need to talk to them about long-term profitability. Then if we don't have satisfied guests, it's totally impossible to give them long-term return on their investments. So, and that's a constant job, probably. You probably talk about that all the time when you meet the asset manager.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for your questions. We appreciate the time today. And please stick around for the next session. We've got one more left today.